Hey everyone, welcome back to Zane Customs. This week, as you clearly saw, I'm going to be working on Avatar Episode 2, The Avatar Returns, and basically I just try to take the most pivotal scene from each episode. So for the last one, the boy in the iceberg, obviously the most important thing that happened in that episode was Sokka and Katara finding Aang in the iceberg, and for me, I thought the most important part about this episode was Aang going Avatar state, because it's the first time you ever get to see that. And I decided I kind of wanted this cool angle, almost as if the camera was down on Zuko's ship looking up at him, who's looking up at Aang, you know, because I wanted everything to be kind of the focal point to be Aang in his Avatar state. So I kind of wanted everything about the drawing, I wanted it to kind of lead your eye up to Aang, and I think it worked pretty well. But I had a pretty hard time trying to get Zuko correct. So if you can see here, I went into Forger and sculpted some models of Zuko with his head tilting back, and even my old sculpture of Zuko that I did a video about months ago. I took that model and just kind of reposed him so he was looking up, just to get a good reference photo, because everything I was trying was just looking off. And also I just wanted to mention, this is something that I mentioned in my last video, but I just want to mention it again, that when I'm doing this, it's just fan art. Again, Avatar is my favorite TV show of all time. I absolutely love it. But I'm also just kind of making things up as I go. So you'll see that I changed Zuko's suit quite a bit. Same with the last video. I changed the way Sokka's coat looked and things like that. Just because my style is a little bit more detailed and realistic than obviously a cartoon TV show can be. So I like being able to add a lot of more random details. And I'm not trying to say that this is how Zuko's suit should be, this is the best way. No, it's just fan art, it's just for fun. But it's something I have a lot of fun doing. But there's a good chance that next time I end up drawing Zuko in this suit, it'll be different, just because I like just kind of doing what looks good for the image and having fun with it. One thing though that I thought I'd mention is Aang's suit is pretty much completely unchanged. I did add a few things like seam lines in his clothing, and for a while I tried adding wrappings around his arm because I was looking up, like for Zuko I looked up a lot of actual samurai armor to get inspiration, and for Aang I was looking up actual Shaolin monk clothing, and I noticed a lot of them had those wrappings, and you'll see that later on, but I ended up getting rid of that just because I didn't think it looked as good. Aang's suit is one of those ones that it's pretty much perfect, or at least to me. I have a hard time finding anything cool to add to it, you know. And I might in the future if I think of something else, but it's pretty much completely accurate to what you saw in the TV show. And for any of you who saw the last video, you'll know that I was gassing this one up quite a bit. I was talking about how happy I was with it, and that it was my favorite drawing I've ever done, or at least digital drawing I've done to this point. And that's completely true still. I'm super happy with the way it turned out, and I think a big part of that was just spending a lot more time on it, whereas with the boy in the iceberg one, I just sketched out a quick scene and then went right into coloring. And then obviously if you saw that video, you'll know that didn't work out, and then I had to go back and recolor it, which is fine, but I didn't want to have to do that with this one. I didn't want to have to do 2 stages of coloring before I got something I was happy with. So I spent a lot more time on the lines, making sure I liked the way everything actually looked. And then once it came to coloring, it was a lot easier because I already had everything fleshed out really well. And the coloring on top of that, I spent a lot of time on, and was really, really happy with the way that turned out. I'm also super, super happy with the way this water turned out. I've drawn water in the past. Like I've said a million times, Avatar is my favorite TV show ever, so I've done a lot of fan art, and I used to draw water a lot like they did in the show, which is fine for an animated TV show, but it doesn't look as realistic as I was going for. So I ended up looking up, you can see this photo in the back of water pouring out of a cup, and basically just use that as reference, and I actually surprised myself with how good it looks. At least in my opinion, I am super happy with the way it looks. I think for far away, it's convincing enough that it might be real water, you know. and I'm just super happy with the way it turned out. Kind of unfortunate because once I start to color Zuko, I realize that he blocks a big majority of this water spout, or whatever you want to call it. So that was kind of a bummer. And then also I added a glow effect on there because it's Avatar state and everything glows, so I thought it looked cool. But all that kind of blocked the original drawing, which I think it works better in the long run, but I was a little bummed because I was super happy with the way it looks right here. And this is the point that I really started to get excited about this drawing, which is good because then I end up working even harder and longer on it, and just making sure that it's everything I want it to be. And when I got the lines done, I was more happy with the lines on this drawing than I was with the previous one, because again, the previous one I just kind of sketched things out real quick. But it wasn't really until I started to color Aang that I was getting excited about it. But even at that, I was still worried that it could have been better and things like that. But once I got the water done and decided that I was going to have that glow effect, and added the glow effect onto Aang's clothing and stuff like that, that's when I feel like this drawing was really starting to pop and come to life, and that's got me super excited. And then I ended up spending a lot of time on this and just making sure it looked as good as it could. One thing I used to do when I was younger is, if I had, for example, this blue glow effect coming off this water affecting Aang's clothing, I would completely color Aang with the light coming from one direction, and oftentimes it would be coming from multiple directions, just because I didn't know what I was doing back then. But say I did that, then I would just go over on a different layer with like an airbrush tool, and just have a big gradient of blue coming across his body. So almost like a lens flare or something like that, if that makes sense. And basically it wouldn't look good, but I've definitely gotten better when it comes to coloring and things like that. I used to rely a lot more on lines, which I still think is good. Like I said, I spent a lot more time on the lines on this one because I think it's better to have a solid base to start on. But back in the day, I used to do just the lines and then color that, and if you erase the lines, it would look like garbage. But now I'm trying to focus a lot more on my colors. So by the end, same with the Boy in the Iceberg video, by the end of this one, I end up deleting the lines, and you can't even tell because the colors are well fleshed out, if that makes sense. And here's that Shaolin monk wrapping that I did on his arm. Like I mentioned, it didn't end up looking good, so I ended up changing it. But anyways, like I was saying, back to having the lighting effect, instead of just having a gradual lighting effect go over the top of his whole body, which is what I used to do, I actually tried to think of how the light would actually affect his clothing. So you can see underneath each wrinkle, there's a blue glow, and then I have a really harsh shadow in between the blue highlight versus the rest of the body, just to kind of break that up. And anyways, my point is that this looks a lot better, a lot more realistic. There's still probably things that are off about it. I might not have enough blue glow in certain areas and might have too much in others and things like that, but this looks a lot better than just adding a layer on top of this and throwing some blue airbrush on top of it, which is, like I said, what I used to do. And here you can see me erasing Aang's hands. Probably the biggest thing that I struggled with when doing this whole entire piece was Aang's hands and Zuko's head, which you'll see later once I start coloring Zuko. And that is just because for Aang's hands, I couldn't get a good position that looked right, and I just kept drawing different hand gestures and all these things, and by the end I get something that I'm happy with, but it took me a long time. When it comes to Zuko's head, I was happy with the way it looked, but I had a lot of trouble coloring it. And when I go to color, same with the Aang, I actually use the eyedropper tool, which lets you select color off of any part of your image, and I would import images of Zuko and Aang from the actual animated show, so I'd get the exact color of Zuko's armor, for example. So that's what I did, and then obviously by the end it's not really the same color, things change a lot, but I did that for Zuko's skin, and then adding in all the shadows and highlights, it ends up looking a little weird, I'm happy with it by the end, but I did struggle quite a bit with that. And there I was just messing with some different layer effects, which is something that Sketchbook had, but Procreate's is way better, and you can do a lot of cool things, and you'll see later on I do quite a bit with that. And also, when you see me jump between a full screen capture and then just that kind of smaller, just an iPhone size screen capture, that's because I like to screen record my whole process, but Procreate records the whole drawing process on its own at the same time. So if ever I have a problem, like right there, I think I might have just accidentally forgot to press record, or sometimes if I'm recording for too long and it can get corrupted and things like that, Procreate also records it, so I can go in there and take what I want from Procreate and add it into here. The perfect example being right here. Pretty much all of Zuko's coloring process didn't get recorded, and I'm 100% sure that I pressed the screen record button, but sometimes if you when you press the stop screen recording button, then it'll take a while to process before it shows up in your photos, and sometimes it just won't. And I don't know if that's a problem other people had, but I've done it multiple times, and where I'm 100% positive that I've been recording it, I press stop recording and then it just never shows up, which is super unfortunate. But the good thing is, like I said, Procreate automatically records everything itself, unlike Sketchbook or something like that. So if I ever do have this problem, which I've had this time and on my last video, so it happens a lot, then I could always hop in to Procreate and pull that video, and then I'll still be able to show you guys my whole process. The thing I don't love about doing it this way is it's great for Instagram or TikTok or something where you don't have a lot of time, but on YouTube, where I could make a video pretty much as long as I want talking about my process, I like screen recording because it shows when I zoom in and zoom out and all these little things, where this looks really cool. Like I said, it's really great for Instagram because you just see the whole thing just kind of coming together, and when it's time-lapsed, you know, all these hours get time-lapsed into 1 minute or however long, your canvas would be flipping back and forth an insane amount, and you wouldn't even be able to tell what's going on. And so that's why this is great. But like I said, I like having this, but I like doing it the other way. That way you guys can actually see what I'm working on, because sometimes if I'm working on super small details, you can't even tell that anything's happening, whereas when I screen record it, I'll zoom in, so obviously you guys are, I'm focused on whatever's right in the center of the screen, you know. But to talk a little bit about the coloring process, this was very similar to Aang in that I wanted to have different lights affecting Zuko. And actually I kind of have three on this one, because I have the regular light from the sky, which is, it's overcast, so it's kind of a gray light. I wanted this yellow orangish light coming from the bottom left corner, like there's a fire or something over there, and then obviously the blue light from Aang's water spire. And the blue light is pretty mild on this one compared to Aang, because obviously Aang's right up in the water, whereas Zuko's pretty far away. But I still wanted to show that was affecting him. I mainly was focusing on the yellow orangish light coming from the bottom left corner, and you'll see later I add in some sparks or something to show that there's a fire or something, because obviously they were fighting on the ship before Aang fell into water. So I wanted to show that maybe Zuko was blasting fire around and something caught on fire, and now that's helping him. Mainly I just did that because I think it made the whole picture look a lot more dramatic, and when I have trouble coloring something, adding in multiple light sources, not always, a lot of times that can be a problem and just make things difficult, but in this case I think it made it better because I had a lot more things to focus on, and I wasn't so worried about the shadows on his back and different things like that. It just made it easier for me, but it also makes the whole piece, in my opinion, look a whole lot more cinematic. And also Zuko's coloring here is a good example of how, like I said, I started with the very original colors that they use in the actual animated show, but it's changed quite a bit since then. Most of Zuko's armor looks like it's pretty similar in shade. There's some darker reds, some lighter reds, but it's not as drastic as it was in the show. And not that I think the show's colorings were wrong, it's kind of something that just naturally happens that way. and also having this lighting effect kind of I wanted that to be realistic, and it kind of tinted everything. So this is just kind of how it ended up. But I just brought that up to show that, like how I am changing their suits and things like that, I'm trying to stay, or I like to start with the original colors to be somewhat consistent, but I'm not too focused on staying so true to the show. You know, if the colors change, it's whatever, I'm not too worried about it. But one thing I am focused on when I'm kind of doing these little redesigns is I don't want to fully go out there and 100% redesign it. You know, I don't want it to look like it came from the M. Night Shyamalan movie. I'm not so focused on the realistic aspect of it. You know, I don't want to just put Aang in actual Shaolin monk outfit, you know. I still want it to look like Avatar, which is a problem I had, obviously, with some fan art I've seen, and like I mentioned, the M. Night show, because it's cool to try and take these suits and make them more realistic. Like I said, I obviously got a lot of inspiration from actual samurai armor when it came to designing Zuko here, but I still want it to look like it's the show. You know, I don't want it to just be a samurai versus a Shaolin monk, and also they happen to have fire powers and water powers or air powers or whatever, you know. I still want it to be Avatar the Last Airbender, so even though I'm taking inspiration to change things, I still want it to look like the original show, and I try to keep the silhouette very similar to the original show, adding little details here and there, but I'm not going too crazy with the redesigns. But having said all that, I still have a lot of fun doing these quick little redesigns. Like I mentioned earlier, I couldn't really come up with anything different for Aang because his suit's pretty much perfect. You know, there's things you can change and there's things I could add, but I didn't want to add like armor or something that wouldn't make sense for Aang's character or the airbenders in general. And also, his suit is designed for an airbender, so it's not like I could look up reference photos of actual airbenders. They're not a real thing. Zuko's suit was clearly, or at least in my eyes, inspired by actual samurai armor, so I could easily look that up and get some inspiration there, and which I did. But when it came to Aang, there wasn't a lot that I looked up that I thought would work for his suit. Again, because they designed it perfectly. They designed exactly what they wanted, so there wasn't really much I could change. But, you know, maybe in a future video there might be something that I decide looks better one way or another. And one thing that I had to hold myself back on was going way too overly detailed with Zuko. For any of you that have seen my videos as a fan of my channel, I sculpted Zuko months and months ago, and it's a very different design than what this one is. It's got similar aspects, but it ends up a lot different, and there's a lot of detail in that sculpture because I kind of had the same mindset as when I was drawing this, where I wanted to redesign it but still wanted to look classic, but I went a lot farther with it, and I think there's things I have problems with it, like looking back on it now. For example, I think there's a lot of intricate, ornate detail that I don't think necessarily would be there, and that's what I'm talking about when I say I had to hold myself back, because later on in the series, in season 3, Zuko goes back to the Fire Nation and he gets like armor that's fit for a prince, and when I get to that stage, I think I could really go ornate and have all these intricate designs because it's his prince armor. But back here, even though his armor is different than a lot of the other Fire Nation soldiers and things like that, it's way more basic. It almost looks like it's just military armor. It is a little bit different, obviously, to be able to tell him apart from a random Fire Nation soldier, but it's a lot more similar than later on in the series when he has a lot more gold and different things like that in his costume. So there's a lot of design ideas I had, intricate details in his clothing and dragons and stuff on his armor that I didn't end up adding, but it's something that I might add on when we get to future drawings during the book 3 era. Now I'm pretty much done at this point. I'm just going over, doing some final details, finishing up Aang's hands. Like I said, they were a challenge, but I finally got them to a place I was happy with, so I'm just finishing up that and doing some final detail on Aang and doing the texture work, you can see there's a little bit of fabric texture on Aang and Zuko now, and that's just from adding a layer on top of both of them and adding in some black texture and then kind of blending it out. And then I did the same thing with Zuko. And I'm also adding in some sparks for that fire that's kind of coming from the corner. And also you can see I add in kind of just a glow effect, like a haze of yellow. You'll see right here in a second. And that's what I was talking about, where I would originally add that and that was it, to have a lighting effect. But now I think it looks a lot better having that plus all the lighting effects on the actual clothing on Aang and Zuko. But originally that's all I would do. But now having all the different shades of blue and yellow that go across the wrinkles makes it look a lot better. And before I do the final reveal, I want to show you guys what I'm thinking for my next video. So this first one will be Aang seeing Roku and all the Avatar statues in the Southern Air Temple for the first time and having the eyes glow and all that stuff. And the other one I'm thinking of is just a picture of Zuko in kind of a battle pose, and this is during his Agni Kai with Zhao during those episodes. So these are the two options. Let me know what you guys think in the comments which one I should do. If I don't get anybody commenting, I'm probably going to do the Roku and Aang one, because I feel like it's a more important moment for the series as a whole. But I always want to have multiple options, and Zuko is a super important character in the series, so showing what he's doing during this episode is also an option, and him and his Agni Kai with Zhao is a big moment for him. So just let me know what you guys think. And here we go. Here's the final reveal. I'm super happy with it. Like I said, this is my favorite piece of digital work that I've ever done. Super happy with the way it turned out. The lighting, the coloring, everything. I'm super happy with the way it turned out. Yeah, I just can't overstate enough how much I am happy with the way this turned out. I definitely think it's some of my best work. But let me know what you guys think down below. If you liked it, what you liked about it, and if you didn't, let me know what you didn't like about it and what you'd like to see me change in the future. But I just want to say thank you so much for watching. Everybody that is willing to watch my videos, stick them out to the end. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff is super helpful. So I appreciate anybody that's willing to do that. And I'll see you next week. And thanks for watching.